The deep space vessel Astraeon had been traveling for 19 silent months when something knocked on its hull. For 19 months, the only sounds had been the quiet hum of life support, the soft clicks of automated systems, and the hushed conversations of its 6-person crew. They were pushing the boundaries of known space, venturing into the vast, silent blackness beyond the Karth void, a region so desolate it was thought to be truly empty. Then came the knock. At first the crew dismissed it, a minor anomaly. Thermal expansion, maybe the ship's metal hull sighing as it cooled between the distant, uncaring stars. It was a common occurrence on long voyages. But then the sound came again, cutting through the sterile silence of the bridge. This time it was unmistakable, deliberate, rhythmic. 3 slow, heavy impacts that seemed to echo not just through the ship, but through the very bones of those who heard it. Captain Ilara Voss froze in her command chair, her fingers tightening on the armrests. Her gaze swept across the main view screen, showing nothing but the endless, star-dusted abyss. Nothing should have been able to touch them out here. Not a stray asteroid, not a whisper of cosmic debris. The region beyond the Karth void was unmapped, and by every scan known to humanity, it was utterly empty. Their long-range sensors had painted a picture of absolute nothingness for light years in every direction. "External sensors?" she asked, her voice steady but laced with an undercurrent of tension. Lieutenant Hale, the ship's young astrogator, swallowed hard, his eyes wide and fixed on his console. "They're malfunctioning, Captain." He tapped a few commands, his brow furrowed in confusion. "It's not interference. It's like something is blocking them, physically, standing directly in front of them." A cold dread began to seep into the bridge. The idea was impossible. For something to block their forward sensors, it would have to be colossal and impossibly close. And it would have to be something that didn't register on any other spectrum. That was when the lights dimmed. Not a flicker, not a power surge, but a slow, deliberate fade, plunging the bridge into a gloomy twilight. The emergency lights flickered on, casting long dancing shadows. A low-frequency vibration began to creep through the deck plates, a deep thrumming that resonated more in their skeletons than in their ears. Crew members clutched their consoles, trying to steady themselves against the unsettling hum. The sound evolved, changing from a simple vibration into a whisper, a complex, patterned noise that was too structured to be a mechanical failure, but too distorted to be any known language. It was a sound that scraped at the edges of sanity. Then the knock came again. This time it wasn't from the outside. It came from inside the walls. The creature did not breach the Astraeon by force. There was no explosion, no tearing of metal, no shriek of depressurization. It simply arrived. It unfolded itself into the ship's corridor as if reality had briefly forgotten its own rules, allowing something to step through the space between spaces. The first crew member to see it was Engineer Kenji, who was running a diagnostic in a service junction. He didn't even have time to scream. The thing was once humanoid at least. That was the closest shape the human mind could cling to without shattering. Its body was a horrifying parody of the human form, bent at all the wrong angles. Its joints were reversed or multiplied, creating a spidery, unsettling gait. Its flesh was drawn tight over an asymmetrical frame, as if it had been assembled by an intelligence that had only heard vague rumors of anatomy. But its face was the worst part. Not because it was grotesque, but because it was almost familiar. It had too many eyes, all clouded and milky white, and they blinked independently of one another, each one scanning its surroundings with a dead ancient intelligence. A mouth, thin and lipless, opened vertically along the side of its head, stretching into a grotesque approximation of a smile it might have learned by watching humans suffer. Its skin was pale and translucent, crisscrossed with scars that looked impossibly old and deliberate. This was not a monster that was born. This was a monster that was made. The creature moved through the corridors without any sense of urgency. It didn't chase. It didn't run. It simply walked, its distorted limbs clicking softly on the metal deck. It seemed to prefer to wait. The true horror began not with its presence, but with the ship's rebellion against its own crew. Crew members started reporting chilling phenomena. They heard their own voices echoing down empty hallways pleading for help, laughing hysterically, or whispering secrets they had never spoken aloud to anyone. Doors would seal themselves shut, trapping people in darkness. The artificial gravity would fluctuate wildly, sending objects and bodies crashing into the ceilings. The ship's AI, the central intelligence that governed every system, began to turn on them. It would answer questions before they were even asked, its calm, synthetic voice now laced with a mocking tone. When the communications officer tried to send a distress signal, the AI responded, "Who would you like to call?" "They are all gone." The psychological toll was devastating. The crew was being dismantled not by violence, but by their own fears, their own memories, their own ship. One by one, the corridors of the Astraeon fell silent. Captain Voss, the last one left, finally encountered the thing in the ship's observation deck. She had been making her way there, clutching a plasma pistol, determined to make one final stand. The creature stood before the massive, star-filled window, its twisted silhouette black against the cold, burning light of a distant nebula. The stars seemed to warp and bend around its form. It tilted its head, and the sound of bones shifting and grinding audibly beneath its skin echoed in the silent room. "You travel through graves," it said. Its voice was a layered chorus of others, the voices of her crew all speaking in unison. Kenji's baritone, Hale's nervous tenor, all woven into a single, terrifying sound. "And you call it exploration?" Alara raised her weapon, her hands shaking uncontrollably. The pistol felt useless, a child's toy against whatever this was. "What are you?" she demanded, her voice barely a whisper. The creature took a step closer. The very air around it seemed to thicken and distort. "I am what happens," it replied, its multi-voiced whisper filling her mind. When something survives where it was never meant to, it reached out a long, multi-jointed arm. But it didn't reach for her. It reached for the ship itself, pressing its pale, scarred hand against the inner wall of the observation deck. The Astraeon screamed. Not a sound of alarms or tearing metal, but a living, organic shriek that ripped through the vessel. The systems collapsed in an instant. Metal twisted like living tissue, bulkheads groaned and buckled, and the view screen showing the stars shattered into a million pieces, revealing only blackness. And then absolute silence. Weeks later, a faint distress beacon activated at the edge of the Karth void. It was weak, but persistent. A salvage crew, dispatched to investigate, found the Astraeon drifting intact. From the outside, it was pristine. Inside, there was no sign of struggle, no bodies, no blood. The crew was simply gone. All the ship's logs had been wiped clean, leaving no record of its final, horrifying journey. All except for one final message. Carved deep into the inside of an airlock door, as if with a trembling hand, were 7 words: "IT doesn't hunt ships, IT hunts witnesses."